Here we are with Tony Horton. Tony, welcome to the podcast.
Jason, thanks for having me, my friend.
Well, I really appreciate that you're here. And in doing a little bit of research for this, I learned that you grew up just an hour down the road from where I went to college. I don't meet a lot of Connecticut guys, but I went to Connecticut College.
Oh, you did? And I went to URI, which is further up the I-95. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right along the I-95.
Right along the I-95. Yeah. Grew up in Trumbull. Yep. From fifth grade to 12th, and then off to URI, and you were right down the street.
Yeah, and you're probably most well known for creating P90X. At least that's how I know of you. And I gotta tell you this quick story. Back in 2008, so this is about 15 years ago, I did, I think, the core workout with some friends.
X. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I bet you couldn't stand up straight for a couple of days after that.
Well, let me tell you, I went into this very confident because at the time I was in incredible shape. I had just run some of my personal bests in the mile, the 10 mile, the half marathon. And, I really felt like I am a pretty competitive athlete here. Of course, I can do a core workout. But I got to say, Tony, you really kicked my butt that day. And I did feel it for days.
Yeah, it's funny. I know a lot of athletes. Your story sounds very familiar, and there's been quite a few of them that went in there pretty cocky, going like, "All right, I'm talking professional football players, baseball, and that X will wake you right up." There was this one guy who used to play for the Phillies, and he was watching the conditioning coach put a bunch of other players through one of the workouts. And he said, "Let me give you this X, Mr. Tough Guy." And he didn't come to practice the next day. So he missed practice. I wonder what that was from. But yeah, your body adapts. Obviously, that's a routine that I did at least once or twice a week, every week for years and years and years. Now I do other versions of it now, but yeah, it's very specific. It gets after everything. The transverse abdominis gets into the trapezius muscles. It's the obliques. It's the full gamut, right, from front to back. It's a go-getter. So congratulations on surviving that.
Great job making competitive athletes everywhere rethink their fitness.
That's right. Exactly right.
And I think it's also just a really good indication that for very sport-specific athletes, it's a good idea to inject some variety into their exercise programming, because we can get so hung up on only practicing our sport and not branching out into other forms of exercise, other kinds of strength exercises, and even some cross training. It's going to make us into a more robust athlete. And I think that was on full display when I was hobbling around the next day after that workout.
Well, that was the whole purpose behind P90X. Everybody was sort of stuck in this, quasi-myopic way of training based on whatever they were doing or whatever they were trying to achieve. And that can be kind of boring after a while, and people get hurt from repetitive exercises. And then there's just sort of that plateau effect that happens to a lot of people if they're not willing to get outside of their comfort zone here and there. And so we created 12 routines, all very different from the next. From X to plyo to shoulders and arms to core synergistics, just this stuff that I've been experimenting with for the whole year prior to creating it. And I think that's the reason why, it's not a program to get big muscles. It's not a program to it's not a cardio program, where you're just, with your heart rate up high the whole time. It's just that kind of variety. And that's the reason why I think people liked it, and the reason why they kept doing it over and over again. Dr. Mindy Pelz, who's become a friend of mine, she did it for 3 years in a row. Like, oh my God, the jokes got to get kind of tiring after a while, the same old jokes. But, if something's working, why, keep on going. So, and then since then, of course, there was P90X3, X2, 22-minute hardcore, all these other programs that I've done. Now I've got my new one, the Power of 4, which is, familiar. Similar, but different too,
Yeah, I think it's important to keep evolving things as you get older, as you continue your exercise journey. And that just reminds me of like your entire story. And I'd love to back up a little bit and just talk about, how you've gotten into fitness and exercise, because, you've made a career of it. You're obviously passionate about getting people moving. Way back in the day, what made you immerse yourself in the world of fitness? Because it started at a young age, right?
Well, I wasn't a terribly athletic kid. My dad was, but his training techniques from the 40s and 50s were abusive, you know. I mean, they
What
just
do you mean by
were
that?
like it was all about the win-loss column. There was no psychology involved. There was no mindfulness. There was no, there was no recovery days. There was no, nutrition wasn't really, you ate a bunch of meat. You know what I mean? So, and it was a very arduous, unhappy process for him, even though that he was very good. Um, so he didn't want to put me through that. And besides, my dad had a job at that point where he was on the road 5 days a week, so he didn't really have. I didn't, I saw him on the weekends, kind of thing. And that was that. Had that lifestyle for 20 plus years, all while I was growing up through elementary school, junior high school, and high school, right? So, and then I went off to college, and I was a scrawny kid with a little bit of a belly on me, and I played sandlot football and pickup basketball, and I liked tennis, and I would get out and play some golf, but there was no regular training regimen for me whatsoever. And I took a weightlifting course. I thought, oh, this will be easy and fun, and then it's weird. I just felt better. My GPA went up that semester. Huh? What do you know about that? And my confidence went through the roof, and I really liked the aesthetic change. I mean, I'm a young college kid, so the belly's gone, the six pack showed up. I had pecs, I had biceps, and I thought that was going to be a great way to meet the girls. It turned out you needed a solid personality to go with that, right? And a purpose in life. And those things came later. But I just went, okay, this it can happen. Like, if I do this set number of exercises and I do a certain amount of conditioning. I mean, there was no yoga there. There was no plyo there. It was just, lifting on Nautilus machines and some dumbbells and barbells and stuff. That's what it was. But the coach was a good guy. I mean, the teacher coach was just a great guy. And so I had never experienced that before. The little encounters that I had with my high school football coach were just horrible, much like what my father went through. Just a lot of berating and screaming and yelling and whatever, which is like, okay, this isn't any fun. He made it fun. And then, I went out to California where I am now, and I was just immersed in all kinds of fitness because that's what this, the Southern California lifestyle is all about, really. And I just met the right people at the right time. I mean, I had a friend of mine who was a track athlete, and so I'd go to the UCLA track or the Santa Monica College track, and and I'd run hundreds and 200s and 400s and half miles. It wasn't long distance stuff, but we would do like a 2 mile warm up, that kind of a thing. And I just got, and then later in life, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here, I met a couple of Olympians, and we would go down to the UCLA track and really we spent 45 minutes to an hour just warming up, just getting our legs ready to be able to run as fast as we can on the track. And I just fell in love with that. That was part of my early training. And then I joined 4 gyms. I was just like, oh, wow, this is where all the people are. I mean, I could do that. I could go to clubs and get drunk and meet them that way. It just didn't seem like, I mean, I still did that on occasion. I'm not going to lie. But I just liked the community. It was just like, this is where I met my friends, like-minded people. And this is before I was training anybody. I wasn't certified. I wasn't training anybody. But I just liked it. So I was part of World Gym where I would see Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lou Ferrigno, and I would, sit down and I'd get my notebook out and go, Lou Ferrigno, okay, 35 sets of chest. Seems like a lot, but all right, you know what I mean? Or whatever Arnold was working on his calves for 3 days in a row. And then I would go to a regular aerobics gym. I really liked that. And then I would go join my friend Mark Sisson. He had a I don't know if you know Mark or not, the Daily Apple, and so he got me, into my early running thing at the track mostly. And so that was it. It was just sort of a hodgepodge of just everything, and then I started going to yoga just because I knew that I needed that, even though I didn't think it was going to do anything. And then that was a game changer for me. Still is. I mean, I don't miss yoga ever anymore. And that was it. Those were the early days. And then I just started training one of my boss. I was a runner over at 20th Century Fox, a PA, same thing. And he was noticing my changes. I had an agent, and the agent said, you got to get leaner and fitter and better. If I'm going to send you on these auditions, you're looking kind of dumpy. And that was the main reason why I started working out. And then he noticed, and then I started training him. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just, I had a general idea because I was getting these results on my own. And just, stealing from other people and trainers and other people's ideas. I would just, I was like a sponge. And he lost 35, 40 pounds with me. And then he introduced me to Tom Petty, Tom called me up. Hey, Tony, it's Tom Petty. My roommate hung up on him because why would Tom Petty be calling my house? My little apartment. And so Bob hangs up. Tom calls back. Hey, I got hung up on. Can you come to my house? I'm going on tour and I'm fat. Nobody likes a fat rocker. Okay, Tom. So I trained him for 4 months, and then they went off on this tour, and everybody flipped out because they'd never seen him like that before. You know, his voice was better, his endurance was better. He was tearing off the sleeves of his shirt, you know, going around because he was striated and vascular for the first time. It was kind of crazy. And then the phone rang off the hook, and all of a sudden I'm training rock and roll. You know, Bruce Springsteen and Annie Lennox from the Eurythmics, and Stephen Stills from Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham and Billy Idol. Billy called me. What did you do with Petty, mate? He looks fantastic. Come to my house with you. So I just ran all over L.A. And then I would train at whatever. Like I was a 24-hour gym I was a member of. So, you know, my first client in those days was at 5 a.m. and it went all the way to till the sun set. You know, it was crazy. You know, I burnt through a lot of engines and transmissions, and you know, those were the days. It was just fun. You're just hanging out with Bruce Springsteen and Tom Petty and Billy Idol and hearing their stories and hanging out with them one-on-one and helping them feel better, you know, and getting them ready for the tour or whatever they needed to do, you know, a photo shoot. It was pretty cool back in those days. So that's the long version of how I got started. And then the whole P90X thing, that all kind of came later, you know.
Well, Tony, I'm pretty struck by the fact that you started with this weightlifting class, and all of a sudden you sort of got even more into it because you started experiencing progress. Oh, hey, look at my stomach is looking better. I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to even do better in my classes. You know, you had a high GPA that semester. And, you know, it just reminds me, that's exactly why I got hooked on running. I just started experiencing some progress. And that progress, I think, is one of the most addicting things about fitness. You know, you're starting down this journey and all of a sudden you see results, you feel better, you look in the mirror, you look different. And that can be a really powerful motivator. But of course, you know, to experience some of that progress, you have to be consistent. Do you have any advice for people who are getting started or who may have attempted the beginning of this journey and they can't really stick with it? They seem to fall off the wagon. They can't build the habit. They can't stick with it for any amount of time.
Well, you know, there's three things that are sort of the base of how to get there, and these three things have to be part of who you are. You can't ignore these three things, because if you do, then you know you're going to fall off the wagon. You'll maybe start for a bit, and you know, and even before I get into those three, one of the reasons why people fail is because they're doing it for all the wrong reasons. You know, they're like, well, purpose is one of the three things, but like, why are you doing this thing? If it's for aesthetic purposes, it's for, you know, hoping that you're going to look different in the future. For most people who that's their main priority, and it is, unfortunately, then they're going to fail. You know what I mean? I want to get ready because I got a wedding, or I want to get ready because I'm going to a reunion, or I want to look good because I'm going to the beach this summer. You know what I mean? And it's very ephemeral. It doesn't last long term. And the idea here is that you have to understand that this is a lifestyle. It has to become priority one. It has to become the foundation of who you are as a human being. And for me, none of that was anywhere in sight. You know what I mean? I was young and I was insecure and I had a speech impediment called cluttering. And exercise was the first thing that I did that I noticed made me feel better minutes into it. And it made me feel better mentally and emotionally, not physically right away, because the physical comes over time. But I knew that I was very self-aware of the mental and emotional shift that was happening as a result of exercising on that day. And I got that almost immediately. And, you know, this is before I read John Ratey's book, the book Spark, you know, talked all about the effects of physical activity on your mental and emotional state. It talks about the molecules and proteins that come together inside your temporal lobe that's like miracle grow for your brain. You know, your hippocampus and your dentate gyrus and all this scientific stuff about, you know, breathing, right? When you exercise, whether it's weightlifting or HIIT training or whether you're going on a trail run or whatever it is, you know, there's this biochemical shift that's happening throughout your entire body that dramatically affects your mental and emotional state. And if you are consistent, right, and you have a plan, right, those are critical pieces. Those are in the top 3, right? So my purpose shifted from the aesthetic when I was younger to just wanting to feel better, to be more productive, to be happier, to sleep better. Like there's a myriad of things that are subtle in a way that change when you exercise consistently. So you need so my purpose is, sure, I like the fact that I can't see what I'm wearing, but I like being lean and ripped, but I also like to ski hard, and I like to be able to keep up with a lot of my friends who are half my age now. And at 65 years old, there's things that I can physically do now that I couldn't do in my teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. So these are all reasons why. But if you don't have that life experience, and no one ever told you, oh, your purpose has to be in line with the quality of your life, in all those different ways that I talked about. You also have to have a plan. You've got to know exactly what you're going to do and when you're going to do it, right? You have to, it has to be on your calendar. Like there has to be these certain hours or half hours or whatever it is throughout the course of your week where you tell everybody else, this is where I'm working out. This is what I'm doing. You can join me if you want to. I'd love to have some company. But if you can't do that and your schedule's different than mine, don't schedule anything here. Like everybody in my world knows that, Monday, 6 days a week, I've got something going on and it has to do with fitness. So for example, I tell the world, on Mondays, I'm doing my cardio routine, at 5:30, and on Tuesday mornings, at 8 o'clock, it's shoulders and arms. On Wednesdays, it's my plyo session, at the house, jump training basically. And then chest and back on Thursdays, and on Fridays is yoga, and then Saturdays is my day off or not, or I'll go for a trail run. Usually it's a trail run right here in my backyard. And then Sundays is my 3.5 hour ninja stuff, you know what I mean? And so that's my plan. I had it written down. It's priority number 1. My purpose is about just improving the quality of my life and be able to be a good skier. And then there's the accountability factor. A lot of people just aren't successful because they don't have any accountability. They don't have a tribe or a crew or a team or a gang that they want to go do this thing with. And I do. Every time I do one of my workouts, there's somebody here at my house, or I'm joining them at the track, or I'm meeting them here at the end of the street to go for a 6.5 mile trail run. You know what I mean? So that's all locked in. It's who I am. It's priority 1. And if it's priority 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, you know what I mean? You don't have a plan. You don't have a purpose. You don't have no way of being accountable. Then you're just going to miss out. I write about this in my book, The Big Picture. So if those things are aligned and they move from wherever they are on your list, which is probably down here, and they move up here, chances are the odds will improve tremendously.
I think the hardest thing for runners is finding the tribe, finding the community, finding those people around you who will support you. Because I've heard from quite a few of my listeners that, hey, I live in a small town, I go running, and half the town looks at me like I'm a psychopath because I'm out there running at 6 a.m, or they see me after work and they're asking me if I need a ride. And I'm like, no, I'm out here for a run. Like, this is what I'm doing here.
Wow. Well, then I say start the tribe. Go find the tribe or start the tribe. The tribe's on the internet, right? What town do you live? I live in St. Louis. I live in Orange County. I live in Miami. There's got to be 1 or 2 other people that are at least quasi interested in it. And, sometimes you have to be the mentor, the coach, the trainer, you know what I mean? And with me, I had to reach out to all these people, you know what I mean? I found them along the way. And I've invited hundreds of people, and only about a couple dozen or so ended up being here once in a while, you know what I mean? And so it's like you meet these people like, oh man, I'm in, Tony Horton, P90X, I'm fired up. And then you're like, you're going to make it? Yes. And then they're like that morning, oh, I can't make it because of, and then you invite them 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more times, and they don't respond to your email requests or your texts, and you just go, you know what I mean? You can lead a horse to water, but they gotta decide, and some people blow my mind. This one guy was my awning guy, little pudgy dude, never exercised a day in his life. He started asking me for advice. He's been here at my house 5 days a week for the last year and a half. It's just because he says yes. Tony Horton, I'm training with this guy for free. Yeah, I got to rearrange my entire schedule. I got 4 kids. I'm going through a divorce, but he still made it happen. You know what I mean? Because it went from not on his list to the top of his list based on a 45-minute conversation with me. Everybody's different, right? Everybody's different. So, and the one thing that I've learned is the worst kind of advice to give is the kind that's never been asked for in the first place, because it's usually received with resentment as opposed to what you're hoping it will be received with. And that's just human nature. There's nothing you can do about it. But well, every once in a while, people will surprise you. And then some will come for like a month, like, oh man, Alex, he's killing it. He's losing the weight. And then whatever, he had a fight with his girlfriend, or he had to move because there was a leak in the ceiling. And then, you know what I mean? I don't care. Like, there's been deaths in my family, and those weren't predicted. And I just train harder. You know what I mean? I'm more consistent because I know most people will just start eating and drinking and feeling sorry for themselves, which is, I don't know, that's their path, but it certainly doesn't lead to much,
Well, I think that's really good advice, especially just this overarching theme of consistency through adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And, Tony, I went through a divorce last year, and one of the things that really helped me through it was just continuing to run and stay consistent with my exercise routine. It's not therapy. It's not really healing any of those emotional wounds, but it's keeping you physiologically sound at a time when you are dealing with so much physiological adversity through stress and all the hormonal changes that come with that. So, I can see how that is an enormous advantage if you are going through any kind of difficult time.
And to a certain degree, it allows your, based on the science behind pumping oxygen into your brain, it just gives you a different perspective about how to deal with these really difficult times in your life. You know what I mean? I mean, there's two paths, there's an extreme version and there's another extreme version. Like some people will just overtrain themselves into oblivion, you know what I mean? And that's too bad. And they ended up, with all kinds of various joint pain and digestive issues and irritable bowel syndrome, whatever there is, just because they, you know what I mean? They're just living on celery and running 15 miles a day. And that's probably what they shouldn't be doing. Right. It's kind of finding that place, you know what I mean? And knowing when to back down and knowing that's okay. And not competing with the past. I've learned that a long time ago. You know what I mean? And some days I feel amazing, and some days I can barely get through my workouts, but I still show up for them because I know what's going to happen to me just by taking some deep breaths while I'm in the middle of doing something physically hard, because I know that the short-term effect and the long-term effect are powerful and life-changing. So I just do it anyway, no matter what,
I love that mentality. And let's talk a little bit more about the mindset side of things, because you've talked previously about how exercise is critical to having a healthy, productive mind. Can you talk a little more about that?
Well, I never had a mindfulness practice. My mindfulness practice was yoga, and I would do some stretching. I didn't know at the time that that's extraordinarily mindful. That's really important to do. But based on a lot of stuff that I was going through, I was going through these contract negotiations with Beachbody that just went to hell in a handcart. I was really shocked and amazed by that. It was like, wow, this wonderful 20-year run, look what we're doing together. And now, you don't want to keep doing it. Whatever. So they're bad. I would have loved to have kept going, but whatever. It was very traumatizing for me at that time. And I didn't know how to deal with it very well. And then my client of 32 years, Tom Petty, passes away the same day there's the Vegas shooting, and I had friends that were there, and it was just like, wow, I'm not going to be with this company anymore. People are being killed by watching a show, and one of my best friends and clients is dead. I don't know, man. I didn't have a wherewithal. I just I just went into super anger mode. And ended up with Ramsay Hunt syndrome. A lot of people know it now because Justin Bieber. I always want to call him Justice Beaver. It's not right. And so very traumatizing. Shingles in your ear, last place you want it. All the nerves in my ear fried. So my vision and my smell and my taste and my balance were just all out of whack. So I just laid in bed 12 hours a day and drank out of a straw and threw up. That was pretty tough. And so I had to learn about the mindfulness component later in life. And, so I read John Kabat-Zinn's book, Full Catastrophic Living. I think that's the right, and that was a game changer for me. And just learned how to meditate and learned about breath work. It was really, really important for me. It became one of the critical components, other than nutrition and supplementation and exercise. It became the fourth leg to my dealing with hard things in my life, you know what I mean? And not taking everything so freaking seriously and not being angry, you know, and just, you know, dealing with my anger issues. I mean, my father was a tank commander in the Army, and he was a real, you know, son of a bitch is what he was. And at times. And so, you know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And so I have to kind of reinvent myself a little bit through a mindfulness practice that didn't exist, you know, when I was just training. I mean, exercise was enough. And I was older too. So, you know, as an older athlete, it was, you know, I think it's very, there's a lot of serendipity there that maybe it was supposed to happen, you know, and I was supposed to go through that for me able to learn how to chill once in a while. And so, you know, if you look at mindfulness and whatever that means to you, it doesn't have to be sitting in lotus with a candle in a dark room while doing, you know, Namahe Rengekyo over and over and over again. It can just be lying in your bed first thing in the morning and just doing, you know, some box breathing. You know what I mean? It could be walking your dog. It could be, you know, getting out in the yard and digging in the dirt. You know what I mean? It could be listening to some Zeppelin, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is that just takes your mind off the day to day. And I mean, I have a list of 10 different things that are mindful, you know what I mean? And I just kind of look at that list once in a while and I go, oh yeah, time to take Charlie out for a walk. Oh yeah, time to just go walk by myself. Oh, time to go, yep. Oh, it's time to do some sun salutations for 15 minutes. You know, oh, you know what? There's a bunch of stuff in the yard that needs to be clipped and groomed, and I want to plant that little pine tree. It's about time I do it, you know, whatever. And that just completely takes me out of whatever I'm struggling with. And it's powerful. And a lot of people don't have any of that. They don't have that at all. It's not even on their radar. You know what I mean? I mean, listening to music is like when you're in the middle of it, shut it down for 5 minutes and go on to Apple Tunes or Spotify or whatever your source is, and just have those 2 or 3 playlists ready that just help you feel like, oh yeah, okay, I got this thing. I'm okay. You know, you don't even have to leave your seat. You know, you can do it right here on my desktop or wherever I am. Yeah, I mean, going for walks is really a big deal for me. You know, that's it. You know, and don't get Ramsay Hunt syndrome to figure that out. You know what I mean? Do it now. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're watching this right now with Jason and I. If you deal with stress and you haven't really figured out the best way to deal with it, then make your list of 10 things. And you know, going for a run is on my 10 list, you know what I mean? And I don't go far sometimes. I'll run out 5 minutes, wherever 5 minutes takes me, and I'll run back 5 minutes. I don't care about how fast I'm going, or I don't care how, you know, whatever. Like my Saturday runs, it's 6.5 miles. And sometimes it's 8, and sometimes it's 5. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's how I do it.
I love this idea of having a list of things that work really well for you to take your mind off of the day to day and really disconnect and just almost connect with yourself a little bit. Mm-hmm. Do you think that exercise can be coupled with these mindful practices? You know, whether that's lifting weights, going for a trail run, you know, like, are you thinking about anything specific or practicing some sort of, you know, meditation or mindfulness practice while you are going for a walk or a trail run or, you know, anything else that's on your list?
No, you know, I try not to burden myself with any sort of specific lack of thoughts or certain types of thoughts. I know that when I'm out there, I'm just going to for me, it's about being as present as possible, taking in the scenery, right? Especially this trail run I'm on. I mean, it's like jumping over little streams, and there's a lot of shale, and it's uneven, and you know, it's like bushwhacking out there, right? So it just because of the terrain, it makes it very easy for me to just be in the moment, to be present. On my walks through the neighborhood, it's different, right? It's sidewalks or street, and that's when I do my breathing exercises. You know what I mean? But I don't have any particular thought. I mean, and I also don't try to push out thoughts anymore. I used to do that. Like my whole thought about meditation was take a deep breath, exhale, and then try to have my mind be blank. And it never is. You know what I mean? Because the thoughts will come rushing in anyway. So I just let them do what they do. I just know that I'm out there and I'm doing this simple thing and I'm trying to be present, and the thoughts come in and I go, all right, I'm going to think about that, as opposed to trying to push it back out. Now, a lot of people might disagree with that technique, but that technique works for me because it takes the burden off of trying to keep my mind clear while I'm outside doing a walk. You know what I mean? But when I'm weightlifting or I'm doing HIIT training or plyo, no, I'm just thrilled that I'm in the middle of doing what I'm doing, and typically I'm teaching too. Like my plyo session, people are here. My yoga session, people are here. Both my Tuesday and Thursday morning sessions, I'm running the session. So the act of the altruistic act of that certainly takes my mind off of my stuff because I'm helping other people. You know, it's no different than when I'm on stage or something in front of 10,000 people or something. You know what I mean? That's a very mindfulness thing because the onus is off of me and the focus is on them. All right. So that in itself, just because of what that is, it's extraordinarily mindful. And you can't get off a stage in front of that many people and not feel like you're high as a kite. You know what I mean? Right. It's a great thing. And I think, you know, one of my mindfulness things is, what do I need to do for somebody right now who's not looking for a favor? You know, is it a phone call? Is it a text? Is it an email? Is it taking out the garbage for my wife? Is it doing all the dishes or, you know, emptying the dishwasher, which is her least favorite things to do. So I go and do them. You know what I mean? That's extraordinarily mindful because it's not about me anymore. I'm taking it. It's like, you know what I mean? A lot of people say self-help. Well, self-help is really learning how to be less about self and more about others, you know, I think.
I love this conversation because it's almost like we're talking about being healthy, not from a physical perspective, but from a mental perspective. And I think it's very hard to be a well-adjusted, healthy person if you're not also focusing on your mindset and how you relate to everything that's going on in your life. And, you know, I'd love to talk a little bit more about this topic of longevity because, you know, this is a key part of it. And, you know, Tony, you mentioned you were 65 years old. You don't look like the average 65-year-old. And I admittedly aspire to that. You know, I want to be strong and capable well into, you know, the later years in my life. And, you know, I just love to hear from you. What can you share that will help all of us remain capable? Maybe not just from a mindset perspective, but also from a physical perspective too. You know, we talked a little bit about consistency, but, you know, what can really help us continue to be strong and capable, even if we are 65 years old? Because you look fantastic, I got to say, Tony.
Well, there's a little genetics in there, you know what I mean? And I'm not going to, you know, this is still my hair color. God bless the world. That's still coming in. You can see there's some gray still starting to pop. Yeah. I don't know. So both my parents. What's that?
That's your real hair color?
This is it, man. This is it.
That's awesome.
Absolutely it. And even my wife will vouch for me. And then it's still coming in. You know what I mean? It's a little receding there. But, you know, look, I love trying to, you know, like, what's that phrase everybody's using right now to shortcuts? The term used to be shortcut, but it's not anymore. I forget what
is it. A hack?
Hacking. Like I'm a life hacker, even though I don't really like saying that. Like, you know, what does my sleep situation have to be? Like, what kind of pillows should I have? What kind of sheets should I have? What should the atmosphere in my room be? What should the temperature be in the room? I'm a mouth taper now. I tape my mouth every night. I put a breathe right on my nose. I put a tape over my mouth because I used to be a snorer. My wife's not a fan of that. You know what I mean? It's not terribly romantic to look over at me at night. All I need is a mouth guard and whatever else. You know, I'll look like a mummy's laying there. So, like, the quality of my sleep is really, really good, and I try to get my 8 hours in. You know what I mean? And then hydration, like, that's huge. Just making sure that I'm getting enough water and you know, I mean, I drink tea, water, and Pellegrino. That's it. I don't drink anything else. I don't mess with anything else. There's no alcohol that goes in my, I mean, alcohol, look, whatever. A lot of people want to defend their wine and their couple of beers and yada, yada, yada. But once I cut that out, the quality of my life went through the roof. And then I had to decide, well, why was I drinking anyway? I was drinking for all the reasons why I think a lot of people drink. It's just because they just wanted a slight little escape. They wanted to relax. They wanted to be more comfortable in situations where they felt uncomfortable. And I thought, well, why is that? Why can't I do that without the alcohol? What are the things that I need to do without the alcohol? So exercise was a great replacement. You know what I mean? And mindfulness was a great replacement. And of course, you know, then I did stand-up comedy for a while, and I was improv comedy, and I was working to be an actor. So I learned how to be pretty comfortable in front of an audience, pretty comfortable in front of a camera. And so alcohol I just didn't need it anymore. So lack of alcohol I don't have there's no TV in our bedroom. It's like, no, that's not for it. It's the bedroom's for two things, not a bunch of other stupid things, right? And so these are my techniques because I want to, is it about longevity? Do I want to live to be 95? I always say I'm going to live to be about 109. At that point, I'm going to cut it out. You know what I mean? But I might be dead in 3 years. Who the hell knows? You know what I mean? But for me, it's really about quality of life. It's like how flexible can I get? Like, what does my stretching look like? What does my yoga look like? What does my foam rolling look like? Am I going to get in the infrared sauna? You know what I mean? Like, what are all my recovery things? Like my supplementation stuff. I mean, I have my own supplement line that was custom made for me based on some digestive issues and leaky gut and whatever else I was dealing with. And I'm vegan now, I mean, I've tried vegan twice before, but I just wasn't getting the protein I needed because I didn't have the right information. Now that I have my own protein that has HMB and high doses of vitamin D3, oh, okay, I can maintain and grow my muscle. I mean, yesterday I was doing military presses with 50-pound dumbbells, full range of motion. That's 100 pounds going over my head 12 times. I mean, some days it's 35 because I'm a little tweaky from something else. But, I mean, and it's that, and it's the consistency of the exercises, man. Like, I can't imagine, sometimes I miss 2 or 3 days in a row, which, right? I don't like to miss it. I'm traveling or I'm injured or I've got the flu or whatever it is. But, there's all these very consistent behaviors. And then I'm also, looking at new behaviors. Like what else? Like mouth taping. I wasn't doing that a year ago. You know what I mean? A lot of people think, what the heck are you talking about? And it's just, it's about the oxygen and the carbon dioxide and the ratio between the two and getting a good night's sleep. I mean, I just sleep really well. Sometimes I get up to have to go to the bathroom, but for the most part, and I schedule, my life is scheduled based around my sleeping habits, my diet, and the consistency of my exercises, because that's what I do for a living. So, I mean, I have to be an example to everybody else, and so all those things matter, all those things are critical. And, I don't eat garbage food. I don't, I mean, I have a little bit of little sugar once in a while. That's not ideal, but whatever, if I have too much sugar, I'll just go out and run up and down the street 8 times, you know what I mean? Just to get that moving through my body. But it's very rare. It's very rare that I cheat, whatever little cheat foods I have are, pretty organic and pretty clean and vegan and gluten-free. And so for me, dietary, it's no wheat, no soy, no corn, no dairy. Now, sometimes it sneaks in, unbeknownst to me, but, it's just fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins. And I'm not a super strict vegan. I'm in Jackson Hole. There's elk medallions on the menu. I'm going to order the elk medallions. I'm going to eat them. You know what I mean? If there's wild salmon, I'm going to eat the wild salmon. So like, I don't make it this stressful eating strategy that'll, so that I can appear a certain way, or, I'm not a calorie counter. I haven't counted a calorie my whole freaking life. My body fat's around 13%. I'm pretty happy with that. So all those different things. And I get blood work every 6 months. I go and they take out 100. It's like the vampire comes and takes all my blood. I have my urine analyzed. I have my poop analyzed, whenever I feel like I'm out of whack. And I'm doing a lot of stuff, right? I'm doing probably 95% of most stuff that people don't even know exist, because it's interesting to me. And I want to be able to, like, I'm a skier. This past year in Jackson Hole, I was there 11 days in December. I was there 5 weeks, January and February. I was there in March. And I'm skiing steep, nasty stuff fast. You know what I mean? And when I get to the bottom, I go, it's fun. I couldn't do that in my teens, 20s, 30s, or 40s, or even in my early 50s. You know what I mean? And so, I don't know. Am I going to be able to do that in my 70s? Who the heck knows? But I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying life now, and I'm doing everything I can so I can enjoy life now. And hopefully, in my 70s and 80s, I'm still doing some version of that. And maybe even in my 90s. I don't know. It's an experiment. We'll see how it goes.
I love it. I love it. And it seems like there's 2 really important themes to this approach. Like, number 1 is just flexibility. Like, yeah, you eat a vegan diet, but you're going to be flexible with that. You're not going to freak out and really stress yourself out if something creeps into your diet, or even if you intentionally add something to your diet that isn't vegan. And I think that's a really often under discussed aspect of being healthy, is being flexible enough not to stress yourself out, not to be so anxious about your exercise or dietary approach that it's causing adverse health outcomes from all that stress and trying to be so dialed in and type A that it ends up not really working for you. And the other side, sorry,
Go ahead. Go ahead. The one thing I want to interject was it is about physical, mental, and emotional stress. That's what ages us. That's what cuts our lives short. And so what's the opposite of stress or your lack thereof to deal with it? It's joy and happiness and wonder and laughter. Laughter and silliness and joy. I mean, if you've done P90X, I'm a clown. I mean, I was walking to LAX with my wife, and I'll get a lot of things. Hey, P90X guy, because they forget my name, or some will say Tony, but dude, it's the America's Fitness Clown. Okay, I'm America's. Whatever. Somehow I got that nickname. And it's part of it. I mean, the opposite of stress and angst and anger is joy, happiness, wonder, and laughter. And if you've got too much of one, you know it. If you're constantly under stress. My wife and I watched Otto the other night with Tom Hanks. I mean, classic story. Have you seen that movie yet?
Yeah, I admittedly watched the first 30 minutes, couldn't really get into it and turned it off. But
well, you might want to check it out because okay. he suffers from terminal curmudgeon disorder. Right. And then what happens is you're going along life and you're really upbeat and you're optimistic and you're young and you know what I mean? The world is your oyster. And then over time, because you're beaten down and stuff happens and that's life and you're not exercising, you're not eating right and you're not meditating. And of course, things are going on at work and you're going through family issues and blah, blah, blah. That upbeat, optimistic, joyful high school kid is now suffering from early onset curmudgeon disorder. And, there's moments of joy and happiness here and there, but then there's all that angst and anger and stuff in the society and the other side of the aisle right? And you're all into that kind of thing. And then, early onset turns into chronic, turns into terminal, and then you're just a angry old man, get off my lawn, man. And it's all about finger pointing and just there's no more joy, there's no more happiness, and that's what kills you in the end, along with lack of exercise and a poor diet. You know what I mean? And it's just that stress, man. You got to control the stress somehow, and that's why I have my list of 10 mindful things. Like, oh wait, it's time for Zeppelin. Oh, it's time for whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like rambling on. I'll put rambling on from or whatever it is. Don't Get Fooled Again from Who, or I'll put on some Peter Frampton Live, man. I'll just start tearing up because it just makes me so happy, And then all that stuff is like, oh, okay, let's get back to work.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because, I'm going to be 40 this year.
And he's 40, young man.
I know, okay. Yeah. But I have been thinking a little bit more about not turning into a cranky old man, because I was a pretty happy-go-lucky kid, and
having gone through a divorce, that can change you for life, man. That could literally that event is. I mean, I have a friend who just went through it, and man, his approach has been amazing. Just to watch him deal with it, because it's he's out like hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know what I mean? And he knows how bad it could be. And he's doing all the right things. It's impressive to watch him because I've seen the opposite more often.
Yeah, in hindsight, I was very aware of that even from the very beginning. Before the divorce was finalized, during my separation, and I remember talking to my therapist about this and saying, I refuse to become some bitter, anxious, stressed out, angry person. I'm not going to trust anybody anymore. I'm not going to trust women anymore. It's like, no, I can't go through life like that.
No, dude.
I need to have a productive mindset about this and move forward in a healthy way. And, I think running certainly helped me with that. But, a lot of it just comes down to what kind of person do you want to be and act on that.
Right on. Right on. It's funny as my career started to take off. I was in a 2-bedroom apartment in debt, broken down cars. I was training celebrities, and that was kind of cool. It was certainly better than when I was doing mime on the pier, for dollars and nickels and dimes. I mean, that's how it started way back in the day, right? And then I joined a gym, and then I met Tom, and then But I was still broke and angry and sad and depressed and lonely, even though I had a few dollars in the bank and I could go skiing once in a while. But it's I was still in that transformative phase of my life where I was, not opening all the doors. I was like, I don't want to do that, or, whatever. when things came easy for me, then I would pursue it. But when they were a little bit tough early on, I wouldn't. Um, and then, a lot of these books are personal development books behind me. You know what I mean? From Deepak Chopra to Andrew Weil to Gary Zukav to Richard Carlson. I mean, and all that information, that intel that I didn't get in school made a big difference for me as well. But it happens. I mean, I have friends of mine that I've lost touch with because they're just sad now. You know what I mean? They're sad and they're depressed and they're angry in general, and they don't work out anymore. So like, what do we have in common? You know what I mean? And that's another thing. You have to let go of the naysayers and the finger pointers and the people who are just unpleasant, And my wife is brilliant. I mean, I waited till I was 55 to get married, and yeah, she keeps me on track too. She doesn't let me get away with anything. You know what I mean? It's like, she'll say, like, I'll be in the middle of something, right? And I'll be all up in somebody's grill about something, and she'll stomp on my foot, like under the table. She'll whisper, "I like that really awesome fun guy that I married, not this cranky old man that I'm talking to right now." And I'll go, "Yeah, that's right. Yeah, dang, busted." You know what I mean? So I just trust her because she's brilliant, and she knows, she reads me really well. So it's nice to have that kind of person around. And if you don't have that type of person around, you have to ask yourself that very question you just said, like, who do I want to be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, for example, with both my jobs recently, when I started to become famous and I started getting money, that changed me initially. You know what I mean? I thought I was all that, I mean? Like, hey, look at me now. And I wasn't all that. I wasn't all that 2 years before, right? I was poor and sad. And then I started not treating people right, and being a big shot and acting all cocky and stuff. And then thank God I had the right people around me that knocked me down a peg and said, "Hey pal, that ain't working for you. You better, if you want to sustain this career of yours, you better find the other side of the coin when it comes to dealing with people and dealing with situations." You know what I mean? Because it can all go away as quickly as it came. And they were right? So listening to advice, the expression, if somebody calls you an ass, ignore them. If two people do, you might want to look into that. If three people call you an ass, you're an ass. You're an ass. Go buy a saddle because you're going to be, you know what I mean? And so a lot of people and I always say, how did I do there? How did that exchange go? Or how can I be better? You know what I mean? Right. And a lot of people, they live on an island and they think they have all the answers, and then they can't figure out why everything's such a struggle. It's just asking for advice. I've got some super talented, amazing, incredible friends, but they're trying to do it all on their own. And I'll go, I'm right here. I'm right here at the end of the phone. I'm right here at the end of a text. You keep making these mistakes over and over again. I got some experience, knock on my door, give me a call, and I can maybe help you with stuff, But they don't. I'm going to figure it out. All right. Well, you're 57 and you're broke. You know what I mean? So, right. And you haven't worked out the last 3 months, and, but, it's whatever.
I'm really appreciating all this life wisdom, Tony, because I thought we were going
to
talk a little
Wasn't this supposed to be
about
about fitness? What are we talking about?
Yeah.
But it's all intertwined. If you don't get all this other stuff figured out, if you don't get all your ducks in a row here, then where are you going to get the energy to be disciplined with your exercise and your diet? It's just 10 times harder.
Besides flexibility, the other thing I'm learning from you is you are quite intentional about your decisions, whether it comes to your diet, your sleep, your exercise routine, the way you schedule everything. I also find it very interesting how your 6 days of exercise, each one has a specific goal. You're working on different physical skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that intentionality is often something that's a bit missing from runners in their approach to training. Just let's be a little bit more methodical. Let's go through this with some structure, some strategy, and really try to, develop some of that intentionality around your training, because it obviously leads to much better results. So I just wanted to highlight that as something that I think is really valuable. Tony, the last question I want to ask you before we wrap today is, with your decades of experience in the fitness industry, it seems like you've undergone quite a transformation in your mindset around the industry and your approach to fitness. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about what you've changed your mind about when it comes to fitness over the years. Do you think differently about certain things as the industry has changed and our understanding of exercise science has evolved?
It's a great question. I would say there's certain aspects of my training now that are no different than they were 35, 40 years ago. I mean, fitness 101 is fitness 101. There's certain things, you're going to do hypertrophy training or resistance training or body weight training. You know what I mean? But there are some areas that I didn't know existed years ago. Especially when it comes to kind of recovery techniques. That's part of our training, right? The body has to heal to be able to do something new. Especially as you get older, your recovery time is longer. So a lot of the things that I got away with when I was younger, I can't anymore, right? Like the sleep and and getting in the infrared sauna and getting in an ice bath and whatever, doing the compression sleeves on my legs. There's all these different things that I have to do. And that means you have to set some time not only for your workouts, but also for all your recovery stuff. Like, foam rolling is critical, but a lot of people don't want to do it because it's too painful. But it's not as painful as you get through those adhesions and you can do that myofascial release, and it's a game changer. You know what I mean? And so that I'm doing much more so now than I did then, because I didn't need it then. I was young and I was supple and it was wonderful. And and now I'm not. But if I want to be supple and I want to be less vulnerable and more durable when I'm asking a lot out of my body, then there has to be a better post-workout recovery practice. Also, I'm into ninja stuff now, right? So I never did ninja. I ended up with a ninja course in my backyard, and I have a high bar. I have I have a 17-foot rope. I have a 20-foot rope. I have parallel bars. So I'm doing a lot of super intense, skill-based, challenging movements now that where there's a lot more time under tension. There's a lot more muscle recruitment. There's a lot more compound movements that are skill-based. So like my forearm strength and all that kind of stuff, just crazy routines. And every Sunday it's a 3.5-hour tour. And a lot of people who show up here that are very, very fit can't do any of it. I mean, like bodybuilders, forget it. They just get their ass kicked, but the one who keep coming, like this one guy, my friend Andrew, he's a character actor. He's a kind of an overweight dude. And now he's a stick skinny, man. And he's running, and he's a great example to his kids, and he's completely transformed himself. And he's kicking the crap out of my ninja course, which is really amazing to see. And so my feeling now is that, yesterday, a lot of military presses, a lot of Arnold presses, a lot of bicep curls, a lot of tricep extensions, fitness 101. But I also did press handstands with a spotter. I added that into the mix, which I never used to do. And then the rest of the week is more like animal flow, or animal flow is something, it's kind of like a Tabata thing or a capoeira thing, I should say, which is really hard for me. You know what I mean? It's a lot of coordination. It's like almost like gymnastic dance training is what it is. You know what I mean? And so that sort of stuff, which really forces me to focus on that. How do I want to say this? It teaches me that my muscles need to be long and strong as opposed to stocky and strong. There's a lot of people that are in the gym and they're working really hard and doing basically the same 8 routines they've done since high school, and they look good. But man, don't bend over and pick something up weird, or don't try to climb a rope because your elbow is going to snap, a tendon in your elbow is going to snap. So there's a lot of people who are very fit, but still very, very vulnerable because of the lack of mobility and the lack of length in their muscles and the health of their tendons and ligaments, which comes from a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now. And so what happens is, I was fit when I was younger, but now that I'm in my late 50s and 60s and 70s, I'm having all these issues because you didn't adapt. You didn't make those changes. You're still lifting heavy weights only, or you're still just stuck doing cardio, or you're just running. You know what I mean? And I can't tell you how many people, dozens and dozens of runners who did P90X or X2 or X3, and they cut off an hour off their marathon times. You know what I mean? Just because their body was more durable in general, right? They were using secondary and tertiary muscle groups to do something where they only had, they had a finite number of muscles to be able to do what they're asking their body to do. So I don't know. And I'm just staying curious. I'm always curious about about new techniques and new ideas. And a lot of them that come down the pike are crap. It's like, wow, you're putting all your time and energy in this. It just seems, I'm not going to name any names, but boy, I mean, your knees are always shot. Your shoulders are always shot. I don't want to name names again, but if you're constantly hurt, you're still getting older. And so after you recover and you go back to that stuff that hurts you again, like, I know you got all your friends are over there and that community's over there and you're loving that intensity, but you're killing yourself. So you have to be willing, you have to be curious, and you have to adapt, and you have to make changes as you move forward.
Yeah, this focus on both recovery, and it also seems like skill-based exercises that really force you to learn a more complex movement pattern are important to you, especially as you get older. I think they enable a lot more adaptations and the accumulation of these physical skills. And that is actually a great lesson for runners. You mentioned, these runners are only running. I'm always telling my athletes, we got to do other things. We got to get strong. We got to do some strength exercises. We need to warm up dynamically and really make sure our body is primed for running.
Totally.
Even
Absolutely.
the value of cross training and just getting in some of our aerobic work from another type of sport that's going to give us a different movement pattern and build fitness in a different way.
There was a great study in the 70s. They took all the swimmers out of a pool. They put them on the track. They took all the track athletes and they put them in the pool. And for 8 weeks, they were both struggling. And when they went back to their regular sports, they were killing it. Their times improved immensely. So perfect example.
Yeah, and I've experienced that personally. I get hurt with some sort of running injury, and instead of running, I'm spending 90 minutes or 2 hours aqua jogging in the pool. And I'm also doing some strength training. Next thing you know, I come back and I'm running PRs on the track. And I was like, what is happening? I haven't run in 2 weeks.
Isn't that amazing? That's just amazing. Yeah. There you go. You only have to experience that one time, and then you're sold, right? That's how I'm going to do things going forward. Absolutely.
Well, Tony, you're a wealth of wisdom, and I just want you to know I'm very grateful for the ass kicking you gave me back in 2008 with the core workout from P90X. And I just really appreciate your message. It's very holistic. It's one that really encompasses many aspects of fitness, not just physical. And I think that's super important. Where can folks go to get more Tony Horton?
You go to TonyHortonLife.com. TonyHortonLife.com. And if you go there, you'll find out whatever events. I have a yoga retreat in Jackson Hole every year, which is just, we ski, we ride our whatever. If you're a snowboarder, you can do that as well, of course. And it's, yoga in the morning, yoga in the afternoon, and just skiing and having fun during the day. Plus, I have a line of fitness equipment, TH Fitness, and my power stands are there, my med balls, my jump ropes, my resistance bands. You can do that. And then that'll also, if you want to find me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, all that information is there as well. But the other thing too, the other project that my wife and I are really proud of is this new program called The Power of Four. So it's powernationfitness.com. And so people are signing up. They're loving it. You know what I mean? There's, P90X had 12 routines. There are dozens and dozens of routines. And there's different monthly calendars. So you're always changing things up. I'm always Mr. Variety. Powernationfitness.com, and check that out. It's a beautiful website. People are loving it. A lot of testimonials there. So in the first week, just get in there and play for free. And after that, you can sign up or not. It's up to you. So that's what I'm up to. Also, I'm on Tonal. I don't know if you want, everybody has Tonals. Working for those folks. Just shot a new program for them. And then, of course, my supplement line, I would be in trouble if I didn't mention that. It's mypowerlife.com. It was a life changer for me when I was down 25 plus pounds and I was sick as a dog. I was suffering from a accelerated form of sarcopenia, which is like massive muscle loss because I couldn't get out of bed. And it's just been, people are loving it. They're loving that too. So there you go.
Cool. Well, I'll include all links to those different programs and resources in the show notes on the Strength Running site. But awesome. Until then, Tony, thanks for being here.
Jason, that was fun. This was great. I really enjoyed speaking with you, man. Thank you. And we hope to run into each other again one day.
Yeah, well, if you're ever curious about the trails here in Colorado, not just the ones at the end of your street, I can show you some pretty
I bet, man. I bet.
And we don't have to go run 20 miles.
I got 17 miles back here. There's a lot to see, but that's, I've seen it all 50 times. So, yeah. And Colorado, I love Colorado. Boy, it's amazing, amazing place in general. So thank you, Jason. I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Tony.